Hi, my name is Stephanie Caratanudo. I used to be an AP history teacher for AP European History. I started the program at the school that I worked in. And I am here with Peterson's to get you prepped for your first AP exam. Here with me is our moderator, Rick.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here to moderate and make sure that all your questions get answered in this test prep live stream that we're making happen.
Awesome, thank you. So, we're going to go through a ton of strategies here, and it's best that you know your test. So make sure that you are looking up your test-specific rubrics for multiple choice questions, short answer questions, long essay questions, and your DBQs. You'll want to know the weight of these sections, how much time you have to complete them, and how you're doing. Like, what's your skill set with these? The fact that you are here working with us at Peterson's and watching this live stream, you are ahead of the game. So don't feel like your back is up against the wall because we've got you and you've got this. As we go through this, it's important that you have something to take notes with. We're going to be asking you some questions. You could put some answers in the chat. So either have a piece of paper and a pencil by you, or you could take notes on your phone, watch this on like an iPad or laptop, whatever works for you. What to expect today, our agenda for this hour. First, we're going to talk about Peterson's test-taking strategies, multiple choice question strategies, an example of a multiple choice question, free response question strategies, an example of a short answer question, and an example of a long essay question. And then we will go over some study strategies so that you leave here feeling the most confident for your AP test. There are some resources that Peterson's is offering. You can access the AP exam prep materials in this entire wonderful library of resources available on Peterson's by signing up now, and you'll get 20% off. So you can use this code, and we have a video for you.
For nearly 60 years, Peterson's trusted reputation as a premier education resource has propelled modern learners one step closer to achieving big dreams through career and educational training. Over 500,000 students trust Peterson's every year with some of the most pivotal challenges of their careers, including admissions tests and licensure exams. With over 300 titles in distribution, Peterson's comprehensive catalog places learning strategies alongside informed content at the turn of a page. Aimed to raise scores and chances of admission, Peterson's all-inclusive online test prep offers an extensive catalog with something for everyone. Packed with interactive lessons, bite-sized videos, flashcards, and over 185 practice exams, including SAT, ACT, CLEP, and AP tests. Subscribers get online access to all of it at one affordable price.
I definitely plan to finish out my test prep using Peterson's. I found that their content has been very, very accurate to the actual test.
Also available to subscribers at no extra charge, the Peterson's mobile test prep app makes learning accessible on the go. Peterson's live, on-demand tutoring with top-notch subject-specific tutors provide essay support and resume reviews through streamlined tools including video, chat, virtual whiteboards, and screen sharing. Whether you're a parent of a K-12 student, high school senior ready for college, grad student, or returning to your education, Peterson's prepares you to level up for success.
Welcome back. I hope that Peterson's answered some of your questions and you're feeling really calm knowing that Peterson's is here to work with you and get you prepped. So some amazing test-taking strategies that Peterson's offers is right here on this slide for you. And what they will do is really help you become a strong, confident test taker in general. Now, I want you all to remember that you're taking an advanced placement test, and this is through College Board. College Board also conducts the SATs. So you getting to know this test and the more prep you do, like through Peterson's, for example, the better suited you're going to be and the more confident that you're going to feel when you go to take the SATs to get into college. If you take the ACT, Peterson's also has that prep material ready for you. So know that so much of your learning needs is going to be here within Peterson's. So some of the test taking skills that they offer for you is setting goals. You've been practicing for this test for a long time. At this point, you may have an idea of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. So maybe you want to set a goal like you want to get 40% of the multiple choice questions right. So as you practice, try to reach that target. Like I said before, you want to really know your test format and your testing priorities. How many sections there are on your test, what's the weight of each section, how much time you have in each section. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in detail when we go over multiple choice questions, but you want to prioritize easier questions first. Really, your goal is to answer the right question. Then you'll fall back on some strategies. One way to do this is to make sure that you're targeting the right questions first, is to predict the answers even before reading your answer options. Read the question and have your idea in mind about what the answer might be. After you do this, read all of your answer options. If you're still unsure, then you can start eliminating the questions. And as you do this, you want to build certainty. There are reasons why the right answers are right and the wrong answers are wrong. So if you're feeling like, okay, I'm not 100% sure of what the answer is, what are the reasons why those other answers are wrong? Answer every question. You will not get points taken away from answering a multiple choice question wrong. You only get points awarded to you. So even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I've never even heard of this term before, take a guess because you never know. Maybe it's the right guess. Maybe you knew more than you realized. And lastly, use every second of testing time. If you have more time, look for any mistakes. Make sure that you are prioritizing doing the best that you can. And part of that is going back and looking at things if need be. Really focusing here on multiple choice strategies. The first thing that you've got to do is read the question carefully. Really pay attention to keywords, qualifiers, modifiers. Then find the right answer first. Afterwards, you can start using the process of elimination to narrow your choices. Recognize any distractor answers. Look at the language of the question. What are they looking for? And time management. So typically there's going to be 55 minutes and you have 55 questions. So it could be a minute per question, but remember, you might answer some of the questions faster than 1 minute. So if you find yourself, you're like really struggling on a question, then move on and come back to it. Here is an example of a multiple choice question so we can practice these strategies. So I am going to read you the directions because remember, first thing you got to do is read the directions. Each question set is organized around 2 to 5 questions that focuses on primary or secondary sources. After reading the document, choose the best answer. Now, this is an example of a question from the AP US History exam. And you'll see questions 1 through 4 refer to the excerpt shown. For our purposes, we only have one question, but on your test, make sure that you're answering the question set that go with the proper prompt. Let's get into it. We have this quote. Reverend George Whitefield arrived in Boston September 18th, 1740. So already we have some context. We have place, we have a setting, we have a time frame. So maybe your mind is starting to reel about what you know about this time period, that this is a reverend, this person's name. What can you infer? On his first visit to New England, his fame had preceded him. In the afternoon on the next day, he preached in Brattle Street Meeting House to about 4,000 people. The following day on the Old South to 6,000, and on the Common at a later hour of the same day to 8,000, which outdoor assemblies afterwards increased to 20, even 30,000. These numbers are taken from his own published journal. From Boston, he proceeded east as far as York in Maine, then west to Northampton, and completed the tour of New England on the 1st of December, having traveled upwards of 800 miles in 74 days and preached 175 times in public, besides exhorting frequently in private. And this is from Joseph Sylvester Clark in A Historical Sketch of the Congregational Churches in Massachusetts from 1620 to 1858, published in 1858. So we know who wrote this. We know who this is about. We have a ton of context that you all should be thinking about when we go to answer these questions and see the choices. So the question is, Whitefield's popularity and preaching tour were part of which of the following movements? Now, before you see any of the answer options, I want you to think about what movement might this be related to. Feel free to write this in the chat if you know it. Take a guess, or if you know it, write the answer. So this is a good example of you read the question, find the right answer. First thing is first. Now, maybe you're going, well, I have an idea. I'm not 100% on the answer. And let's look at these options here.
That's me, by the way.
Okay. Fair enough. So the answer options that we have is A, the social gospel, B, the gospel of wealth, C, the first great awakening, and D, the second great awakening. If you haven't already typed your answer into the chat, please do so now.
All right. Using the strategies, I'm a little overwhelmed. How can I kind of get through and answer this question?
Sure. So I would say that you probably fall into two camps. Maybe you were thinking maybe you were thinking it was the social gospel, and now you see the gospel of wealth, and you say, "Ooh, I know they're trying to trick me," and maybe it's one of these two, because these are obviously like pretty related answers. Or maybe you were like, I think it has to do with the first great awakening, but now you see the second great awakening is an answer. So you're probably at the point where you can at least eliminate two. And now you've got to really think about what makes the right answer right and what makes the wrong answer wrong. And for this question in particular, my hint to you would be time period. So let's take a guess.
Okay, so using process of elimination, I'm going to eliminate A, the social gospel, and B, the other answer that I can't see. And then I think I'm going to guess C.
Okay, the first great awakening. That is a great guess because that is the correct answer.
And that's the test, right? It's just that question.
Unfortunately, you get another, 54? And so the correct answer is C. And let's talk about why the other answers are wrong. Choice D is incorrect, the second great awakening, which was seemed like your second choice there, because that began around 1800 and the first took place in 1740. So looking back at the time frame of the question, then you'd know that it's really the first great awakening. And the social gospel is incorrect because that was a religious reform movement that arose during the Gilded Age that occurred during the 19th century. So really thinking of time frame here for this question in particular. Choice B is also incorrect because of the time period. And what the gospel of truth was, the gospel of wealth was Andrew Carnegie's kind of concept that people in his wealth bracket should return the wealth to the general public. And this happened in the late 19th century. So that was a great way that we went over. You either knew the answer just by reading the passage in the question, or we used the process of elimination. Next, let's talk about free response questions. There's 3 different types of 3 response questions. There's a short answer question, the long essay question, and the document-based question. Thinking first about the short answer question, which is the first thing that we'll go over, is these are designed to test your analytical skills. You are going to write each section, your answer should be about 3 to 4 sentences. There are 3 required short answer questions. Short answer questions 1 and 2 include text or a visual stimulus. And these might, a time frame that you might have, because you'll have 40 minutes to answer these questions, is about 12 to 15 minutes on the stimulus-based short answer questions. Your third short answer question, perhaps a little bit more time. And you have your option. They'll give you essay short answer questions 3 and 4, and you can choose between one or the other. This is usually about 20% of the exam. So what you want to do is write very clearly and precisely. You want to ace this, and I will explain that in a moment. For your long essay questions, what you're going to do is pick one of two of the questions. You really want to use in your AP history tests the historical evidence. You want to craft a thoughtful historical essay here. You're thinking of skills such as argumentation, compare and contrast, continuity, change over time. And all of this is going to be tied together with a relevant thesis, one that really, really stands out. And this is important for your AP history exams and for your AP literature exams. So we're going to talk in detail about the thesis. Then you'll also, on the history exams, have your document-based questions. Moving on, we have our free response questions. So you're really going to be thinking about the presentation of these, how to compose a focused response, and time management. What AP graders are looking for, and I think this really helped my students, is AP graders are on your side. They are looking at the rubric and they're looking at your essay compared to the rubric. Do you have these points? Okay, so familiarize yourself with this stuff. Here are some extra strategies that you can use. Again, always reading the question carefully, being sure that you answer the specific question that's asked then. Pay attention to verbs, and on a history test in particular, it might be like describe, explain, compare, give evidence for. Then briefly outline the answer to avoid any confusion, just even in your own mind. If you're like me, I kind of like can tend to overthink, and you want to have that really figured out. Do these ideas flow? One great piece of advice that I think is helpful for any student, especially if you're feeling a little bit nervous, is if you don't know a word exactly, take a shot at it. Like I said, these readers are on your side. Another important piece of this is you don't need to quote. It is a waste of time. Paraphrase what you read. The AP readers know the source. You do not need to spend your time writing in quotes the exact passage that you're referring to.
You're not trying to pad the...
No, you're not trying to pad, and it's just going to waste your time. So we're about to dive into short answer questions. What I want you to do is ace these short answer questions. How are you going to ace this? You are going to answer the question, A. In a phrase or a sentence, you're going to give a clear claim that answers the prompt. C, you're going to cite evidence. And so this can be in the same sentence as A, but it should be very specific, accurate, and have as much detail as you need that is relevant to the prompt. Remember the relevancy here. And E, expand, or explain. So in total, you should have about 3 to 4 sentences, and here is a good time that you can add an additional 1 to 3 sentences to really make a connection between your example and the explicit claim that you are using to answer the prompt. Let's put this strategy into action, shall we? This is an example from U.S. history of a short answer question. So the directions here is this section includes 4 short answer questions. Using your own paper, you must answer both question 1 and question 2. For question 3, choose to answer one of the questions shown. Since the late 19th century, mass news media has continually grown in scope and mode. Answer all parts of the following question. Now already, hopefully you're thinking about acing this. How are you going to answer this question? Well, you know time frame already. We're talking about the late 19th century. So this is like a relatively recent history. Now you want to read this and think about how you're going to use the information here, what evidence you're going to cite, and how to explain this. So as I go through this, I encourage you to either take notes or write in the chat. What are how would you answer this question yourself? So for one, give one example, one reason why any 2 of the following were similar in their effect on politics. And your options are mass circulation newspapers, film, radio, broadcast television, cable television, and social media. Next, for 2, you're going to give one reason why the 2 you picked in part A were different in their effect on politics. 3, you're going to give one reason why any 2 in the above list other than the 2 you picked in part A either were similar or were not similar in their effect on politics. So you have a few options here. In questions 1 and 2, you're picking 2 of the choices above and comparing and contrasting them in separate pieces. And then remember, in part 3, you are going to pick 2, but not the 2 that you just used in parts 1 and 2. And you have a choice. You could either compare them or contrast them. So if you have an idea of where you might go, what evidence you might use, please feel free to share that with us. I'm sure everyone would love to read that. Don't you think?
I think so. I will throw my answers in the hat.
Yeah.
One of the things that, things that are similar are, broadcast television and social media. You almost kind of, get that instant reaction of what's going on in politics. Obviously, in Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, everyone is expressing their opinion on that front. And then the same with broadcast television. It's about as live as this live stream is, which is 10-second delay on that front. So you're getting that instant reaction to a specific politic subject. When it comes to different, I would say, newspaper and radio.
Well, you're picking the same, you're writing, what's the difference between broadcast television and social media?
Aha!
Because you need to compare and then contrast in the next one.
This is why it's important to read the entire question on that front. Difference. No, that's the hardest one. Again, you don't necessarily have, between social media and broadcast television, the output of, there might be different people that watch broadcast television compared to a younger generation that might use Twitter or Facebook, or even an older generation that uses Facebook and maybe not Twitter or Instagram.
And politics are going to vary based on some of these demographics. Yeah.
I've done this before.
And so, out of curiosity for this last piece here, do you think, it sounds like you feel more comfortable in comparisons.
Correct.
So you would maybe pick another 2 of these and compare them because that's just where your comfort zone is.
Exactly.
And that's fine. Knowing yourself as a test taker and your skills, use that for the exam. Thanks, Rick.
Woo!
You did it.
I got a 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. It's good.
I don't know. I'd have to have the rubric,
I wasn't, clear. No, I got you.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read you an analysis. Now, there are a plethora of different answers here, but to get you hopefully feeling confident about your answers, let's read some of the ways that you could have answered this question. For part A, some possibilities are grouping by medium. For example, one could say that motion pictures, whatever the mode, film, television in either form, social media, create a sense of intimacy, even if recorded and not live. As to effect, the debate rages, but one can either argue to the propagandistic effects inherent in motion pictures, selection of image editing, just juxtaposition of images, or for the potential for increasing empathy. Comparisons to photographs from mass circulation newspapers may be made. For part B, differences also abound. For example, network television was mostly one way. Other than the indirect feedback of advertising success, programs were delivered to an audience. The rise of social media allows for Google-driven suggestions, closed-off Facebook communities, and for the rest of balkanization to which the internet is argued to have given rise. One could also argue that mass circulation newspapers at least engage reading, allowing for more space for argument and evidence and the like, whereas social media outlets like Twitter force discussion into tiny spaces. Part C just asks for another pairing of two media, either in how they have had a similar effect or different effects. Possibilities are many for this kind of item. Make sure that you create a T-chart to organize your work and make sure that you answer all parts of this question for whichever item that you select. But here I think is a really great answer of, do you have a defensible claim? And were you able to provide evidence? That is what they're looking for. It's straight to the point, and it's ensuring that you are bringing as much context and history as you can to this.
Now, to kind of build off of what we've talked about prior, of not leaving a blank answer, you don't get penalized for a wrong answer. What happens if you necessarily don't, hit all of the things that are being asked? Like, for example, when I first answered the question, I did not do a difference. How would that affect me?
I think that's a great question. And what happens there is it sounds like you would have had a really good answer, but it didn't answer the question. So you wouldn't have gotten points.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to still try to answer, though, because there might be ways based on the rubric to give you a point here or there. The best thing that you could do for yourself is really make sure that you're answering the right question, reading the directions well.
Absolutely. That's good to know.
And give the readers a chance to give you some points. Moving on, we're going to focus on thesis writing because, like I said before, this is really important for any essay that you write in your AP exam and then maybe in the future for your SAT exam. So Peterson's, their test prep for AP Lit, there's this wonderful video and resource for thesis writing that I'm going to summarize here for you now as a perk to attending this live stream. So to write a strong thesis, what you'd like to do is start with a hypothesis. You read this prompt and your brain is hopefully starting to flow. As you hypothesize, you may have a couple different ideas. Which is the one that generates the most questions? And can you support that with evidence? That is where you're going to go. Once you have these ideas, let's organize them. And so your teachers might be instructing a certain way to organize your information. A great way that Peterson's has is to make a mind map. So it's kind of like a circle, your thesis is in the middle, and you're directing your answers based on that thesis on the outside of the circle, bringing it in and always bringing it back to the thesis, because if you don't have a thesis, then none of the rest of your essay matters, because what you're answering, like that's the first step is writing this thesis so that you get all the points that you can. Then you're going to figure out the focus of your essay, really write this thesis, make sure that it is as defensible as possible. And with your mind map, you have all of these ideas. What are your the topics of your paragraphs going to be? after you feel like you've spent a few minutes on this, I give yourself 5, maybe 10 minutes max of your essay outline. Make sure the flow of your ideas makes sense compared to your main point. So let's look at this with an example from an essay question from AP Lit. And Rick, are you going to read this for us?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Just pretend that I'm the student discovering this question for the first time.
Okay.
So, in the excerpt from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, I think that's it, Goethe's Faust, published in 1790, the speakers are preparing to present a play for a crowd. Read the excerpt carefully. Then write a well-developed essay in which you describe the perspective of each speaker. Analyze how the language of each reflects their priorities, and explain how the contrast influences the reader's perception. You may want to consider structure, style, tone, and literary devices such as imagery, rhyme, rhythm, etc. In your response, you should include a thesis that presents your interpretation and/or line of reasoning. Use evidence to support your ideas, explain how your evidence supports your thesis, and focus on correctness in grammar and punctuation to effectively communicate your argument.
Thanks. And I'm going to pause you right there. You already know that what the essay should be about. You know you're going to get different perspectives here. You're going to have to analyze these different perspectives. You're going to be thinking about the way the author wrote this. So what are these literary devices that you can reference? And like we kind of talked about before with where is your skill set? Is it with similarities? Is it with differences? Here, is this something like imagery? I really understand imagery when I read something. So that is my strong suit. I'm going to try to write a thesis and write an essay incorporating as much as I can to defend my argument about imagery. So you should be getting all of this stuff in the back of your head. Now, for all of you watching this live stream, what I invite you to do is to complete the steps of answering a long essay question. No one's asking you to write the essay right now, but can you write an outline? Can you write a thesis based on the rest of this passage, with which Rick will read in just a moment? You're analyzing the question, organize the evidence that's coming up as he's reading this, develop a thesis, write an outline for an introductory paragraph, figure out what your points of your paragraphs would be, and does it make sense to support your thesis? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. Again, I've always said stress when I take these tests. It's just stress. So for you to kind of ease it into this is actually great. They interrupted, quote unquote. I did not.
Good.
All right. This is from the manager. You two who oft a helping hand have lent in need and tribulation. Come, let me know your expectation of this our enterprise in German land. I wish the crowd to feel itself well treated, especially since it lives and lets me live. The posts are set, the booth of boards completed, and each awaits the banquet I shall give. Already there, with curious eyebrows raised, they sit sedate and hope to be amazed. I know one, see, this is following, making sure you get everything right. I know one the people's taste may flatter, yet here a huge embarrassment I feel. What they're accustomed to is no great matter, but then, alas, they've read an awful deal. How shall we plan that all be fresh and new, important matter, yet attractive too? For 'tis my pleasure to behold them surging, when to our booth the current sets apiece, and with tremendous oft-repeating urging, squeeze onward through the narrow gate of grace. By daylight even they push and cram in to reach the seller's box of fighting hosts. And as for bread, around a baker's door in famine to get a ticket break their necks almost. This miracle alone can work the poet. O men so various, now my friend, pray show it.
So this is the perspective of the manager. And we have three other perspectives here. Even just in that name, you can have an idea of what this person might desire. Let's see what the poet has to say about this.
Absolutely. All right. Take a breath. And speak not to me of yonder multi-masses, whom but to see puts out the fire of song. Hide from my view the surging crowd that passes, and its whirlpool forces us along. No, lead me where some heavenly silence glasses the pure joys that round the poets throng, where love and friendship still divinely fashion the bonds that bless, the wreaths that crown his passion. Ah, every utterance from the depths of feeling the timid lips have stammeringly expressed. Now failing, now perchance, thank you, success revealing, gulps the wild moment in its greedy breast, or oft reluctant years in warrant sealing. Its perfect statue stands at last confessed. What dazzles for the moment spends its spirit. What's genuine shall posterity inherit.
All right, we hear what the poet has to say. What about Mary Andrew?
Mary Andrew, prosperity. Don't name the word to me. If I should choose to preach prosperity, where would you get contemporary fun? That men will have it, there's no blinking. A fine young fellow's presence to my thinking is something worth to everyone who generally his nature can outpour, takes from the people's moods no irritation. The wider circle he acquires, the more securely works his inspiration. Then pluck up heart and give us sterling coin. Let fancy be with her attendants fitted, sense, reason, sentiment, and passion join. But have a care lest folly be admitted.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rick, for reading that. So we know this was written in 1790. We have the perspective of our speakers here. And now remember, you are going to want to explain how the contrast influences the reader's perception. You will describe the perspective of each of these speakers and analyze their language. So some ideas here: consider structure, style, tone, and literary devices. What we're going to do is read to you an example of an essay question that got either a 5 or a 6, the best that they could have gotten out of all of the points here. And I encourage you to compare what this student wrote to the notes that you took during this. 3 speakers in this excerpt from Goethe's Faust are a manager, a poet, and a Mary Andrew, who we can infer is a comic actor. The verses begin with the manager exhorting the poet and the actor to contribute to a performance he hopes to put on. His concern is largely with how the audience will receive it, since, as he says, they sit sedate and hope to be amazed. They've read an awful deal, lines 10 through 14. Now remember, you can paraphrase. He's worried about meeting their expectations because he knows that fresh and new, important matter yet attractive too, lines 15, 16, will have them clamoring for tickets. The poet, for his part, requires very different motivation for his work. He rejects the manager's perspective because thinking about a crowd puts out the fire and song, line 28, and makes his process of creation feel forced. Instead, he seeks out more divine inspiration with personified characters like love and friendship and the artist's struggle with creativity. He distinguishes between what is popular or dazzles for the moment in line 41 and what is truly art. What genuine shall prosperity inherit in line 42, which will last for all time. The Mary Andrew, however, insists that the true value of art is in the experience of the moment. Concern for legacy only robs the present of contemporary fun. Line 45. He attributes inspiration not to purer joys that the poet cites, but to the acclaim from an adoring public. Each speaker's nature is reflected in the tone and rhyme scheme that
Gutha.
choose for their voice, at least as interpreted by whoever was responsible for the translation from the original German. The manager speaks in short 4-line stanzas punctuated by rhyming couplets, and the rhyme scheme is not completely consistent. The first stanza is A, B, B, A, while the others are A, B, A, B. His verses are about audience and the logistics of putting on a show, the booth of boards, the box office. His description is practical and concrete, with a theatrical flair in the form of a simile comparing the crowd to a mob during famine. The poet's rhyme scheme is more sophisticated. His stanzas are 8 lines long and sustain consistent A, B, A, B, A, B, C, C pattern. His speech is more lyrical, as befits a poet, and features more exalted language. Somewhere in the middle is the Merry Andrew, whose identical AAB rhyming has a more galloping pace to it, which then gives way to a simpler ABAB CD construction. His tone is appropriately friendly and encouraging, confident and sociable. The opening lines of the poet and Merry Andrew might initially lead a reader to think the 3 speakers are in opposition to one another. The poet doesn't want to hear about crowds. The actor doesn't want to hear about immortality. The manager doesn't care about artistic merit. However, the resolution of the Merry Andrew stanza prove they are actually complementary. He outpours his nature to bring the manager and the poet together, suggesting the latter's purer joys of heart and the former's desire for coin can both be satisfied by joining sense, reason, sentiment, and passion, as well as fancy and folly, in a successful performance. And even the manager appreciates the mutually beneficial relationship between performer and audience. I wish the crowd to feel itself well treated, especially since it lives and lets me live. Lines 5 and 6. He also seems to understand the value of the art itself. He compares the performance to a banquet and says a crowd may respond to it like starving people fighting for bread, and that only for the poet, the miracle alone can work. Line 25. The poet alone appreciates the creative struggle of pursuing perfection, even if it takes reluctant ears to reveal itself. The side the reader takes will depend on the individual preference for art, commerce, or entertainment. But having each perspective presented individually gives us an appreciation for all the work that goes on behind the scenes to put on a play, and recognition that each contributor's effort matters. So what this student did really well here was to carefully tailor their response to address each aspect of the question. And this author supports the interpretation with evidence. As you read, you have evidence from the text itself, talking about the different rhyming schemes, pulling quotes and paraphrases from the text, really showing an understanding of the context of this. And these body paragraphs consider each speaker's point of view, which is something that you've probably been learning about in your classes, and does such a great job discussing the literary elements involved in the and the techniques in this poem.
Now, what would you say the thesis is in the essay that the student wrote? In your teacher opinion, do you think there is a thesis?
The thesis is probably TJP. AP Lit.
Oh, I am so sorry. Let's skip
No,
this.
that's okay.
I apologize.
I want to find out for you. I mean, I think that in general.
That's my bad.
No,
Let's
that's
start
okay.
off with that.
Okay.
I don't know anything about anything, so it's all good. I am just the moderator.
The
So.
English I know well. Or sorry, the history I know like really well. But essentially,
They're worried about meeting expectations and kind of building off of that, would you say?
yeah, I think so. I think what this author does really well, this student, is explain the point of view and perspectives of the of each of these like characters, and then talk about the structure of it itself.
Got it.
So anyway,
Well-
now I'm just kind of thinking. Okay.
Well, you know what? Poetry is not my strong suit either. So I didn't mean to do any of that front. So I apologize.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. I apologize. All right.
The quotes and the citations really help too here. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what readers might be looking for in a great essay, and we'll get back to the thesis on that. To leave you all off with some ideas here, some study strategies. I want you all going in with the growth mindset. Right now, I didn't necessarily know the answer to a question that you asked, but that doesn't make me shut down. I don't know that answer yet. It's a growth mindset. Okay, so as you study and you don't know an answer, you don't know it yet. You will learn, and you will have plenty of time to figure this out before the test. Do the hard thing. You learn when you make mistakes, actually. So don't shy away from kind of focusing on the deficit, okay? A for effort. It's that same thing. If you fail forward. You want to be actively learning. So some of those practices, what we did in class today, or class in this live stream today, is when people present information to you, ask questions, jot down notes. This is active learning. Go back to this. Manage your time while you're thinking about your test prep until the test, whether that be like signing up for Peterson's, taking extra practice tests. You want to manage your time, and of course on the test itself, organize your materials. The more and more you go through the materials, the more familiar it's going to be, and the more comfortable you're going to be. Also, creating new materials really helps you learn. You're going to assess your own understanding. How much did you remember, and how much do you truly understand? Try talking about this with other people in your life. Explanation, doing that, really explain and expand what you're learning is going to help you feel more comfortable as well. Chunk information, that'll help you tie things back, whether it's time period, a person, you could be chunked by poetry versus historical fiction. And interleave topics. Make connections between everything you're learning, kind of like what we did here today. You're writing a thesis. You're going to write a strong thesis, whether that be for an AP Lit test or AP History test. You're going to take elements and kind of interleave this information. And I want you to know that all of these study strategies are incorporated in Peterson's. This is everything that you will learn and continue to learn with your work through Peterson's. The last thing that I'll leave you off with is test-taking strategies as you do more of these practice tests. Learn from your mistakes. Your brain literally makes new connections between neurons, and I always told my students this, when you make mistakes. It is good to make mistakes, and if you're taking a practice test, then who cares if you made the mistake? Learn from it. Build your test-taking pace. Make educated guesses like we talked about before. You'll only get points. You won't lose points. Don't leave any questions blank. Practice under test-like conditions. Avoid those tricky traps like we saw in that A-push multiple choice question. Don't get hung up on something. Move to the next question and then go back to it. You're going to want to conquer anxiety during the test. Practice some breathing techniques. A deep breath through your nose and a big exhale out your mouth. Some breath could go a long way. Use what works for you. Focus on your strengths. I don't know how many times I said it, know the rubric, master your test format and the instructions, and figure out your own strengths and weaknesses. Since we have a little bit of extra time, I think one of the greatest things that you could do, let's interleave topics, let's actively learn. Please type in the chat, what are your 3 biggest takeaways from today?
That's fantastic. Well, first off, I want to thank you for leading the charge on test prep and kind of preparing for AP exams. While other people that are in the chat are answering that question, I do want to kind of answer some Q&A questions that we had earlier. First off, Elizabeth Barry said if this isn't her first exam, her AP exam, will she kind of benefit from this cram session?
Oh, yeah. There is no question that it's like we just said before, organize your materials, go back through things. The more you familiarize yourself with topics, the more comfortable you'll feel, first of all. And second of all, I don't know anyone who knows everything. So there might be something that you see here and you go, oh, okay, I know that well. Great. That's going to boost your confidence. And then there might be something you go, oh, my teacher said that, but I forgot. So now I'm remembering this and I'll continue to remember this. So
it's that
definitely.
Mean Girls Caddy Heron moment of the limit does not exist.
The limit does not exist, yes.
She also had a question about what do you think the biggest mistake students make with their AP exams?
I think that in general, I think that test anxiety is huge. I know that was something that I really experienced. And when I became a teacher, I thought to myself, gosh, I wish I knew these techniques when I was a student. And some of that is breathing techniques. Some of that is the way that we just talked about studying of it's okay to fail and it's okay to make mistakes. And you're likely going to make mistakes on the test itself. So it's like I said, don't get hung up on it. Move forward and know that you have all of the background that you need. Your teacher has prepped you for this. Peterson's, we're here prepping you for this. You're going to be okay no matter what.
Totally. And Sarah, she kind of, to answer a question of what are 3 things she has learned. One is don't quote. Try for answers and just taking those, breathing techniques of taking a breath and then exhaling and doing those proper techniques. The other thing that I want to say, ask you is what's the first thing you do after you finish the exam?
Oh gosh, probably stretch, move my body a little bit, and then try to think about something else. I think it's still those kind of mind things. There's no reason to be ruminating over the test. What's done is done. Take a deep breath, congratulate yourself, and I don't know.
Do you think it's healthy to just, prep for the next one, or do you think it's time, just to take a little reflection and...
I would argue for reflection. I'd also say that some people are really different, and maybe having this test right in the back of your mind to go, okay, here's what I want to do for the next one. But I think I would argue for most people, take a break. It's going to be May when you take this. Is the weather lovely? Go outside. I don't know. Go on a hike.
There's been a big consensus in the chat of going for ice cream right after.
Oh!
And so Leanne has a question for you of what's your favorite ice cream? Especially after you just took an AP exam.
Yeah. There's a few things that come to mind. I'm gonna say if it's not soft serve, then my favorite would be a cookie dough. I love a cookie dough. Maybe with some like fudge or something, whipped cream. And if it's soft serve, then I want vanilla soft serve with rainbow sprinkles.
There you go. And I don't like ice cream, Leanne, so thank you for the question for me on that. But I do want to stress, if you want access to our test prep materials, we are offering a discount of 20% using the QR code. We have it up on screen right now, and then use the code AP20 % off our test prep materials.
It sounds like it'd be useful for not only college board, or not only the AP test, but the SAT test, because it's all college board. And it's kind of like what we've just been talking at the end. it almost doesn't matter what test you're taking if you have the strategies. And I think Peterson's does a great job of talking about what are the strategies you need to study for anything and to test on anything.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you to kind of
think
build off this live stream?
You're all going to do really, really well. Just know that it's hard work and it'll pay off, and there's always something that you're going to learn, and you'll never be at a worse place for trying something.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us and spending your time with us here on a Thursday. That's it for the Peterson's live stream. Take care and stay safe.
I feel like that went pretty well.
Yeah, dude.
Better than the first one.
No, you know what? It's all about getting better.
Yeah.
Fun. You kill.